went to Vegas, they got messed up, and then they had to retract their steps and find out what happened on that crazy night, you know? And now, it's Stu's wedding, and guess what? He's gonna get married in Thailand, and of course, they fucked up again. So, before I went into this movie, like, weeks before, I'd been saying, like, anytime someone complained to me about this movie, they're like, oh, Hangover 2, they can't have a sequel to that. Oh, really? What about a movie called, I don't know, like, Home Alone? Really? They could have a sequel to a movie about a kid who gets left alone. And they did it. And guess what? Home Alone 2, of course, not better than the first, same exact thing as the first, but it's pretty good. And it's enjoyable. And while being the same thing, it's completely different. It makes it so the movies could be almost interchangeable, except for those certain moments that are like, oh no, it's happening again, you know? Or like, you know the drill, and stuff like that. That's what makes it the sequel, but, and also the chemistry between the characters is a little bit better, even though in the first one it was already so strong. But they made it so the movies could be almost interchangeable in the way. Like, this could have easily just been the first Hangover, and the reviews wouldn't be so shitty for it, I think. But this is the sequel, and I don't care. I mean, in my opinion, there's no other way that they could have made a sequel to The Hangover. Like, once they decided, okay, we have a formula to the first one, like, what are we going to do for the second one? Like, they could have tried to go in a completely different direction with the story and try to make it different, but what they did was, they took that formula from the first one that we loved, which is the backtracking, like, something happened last night, and this time what they need to do is they lose the most prized possession of the father, of the daughter who Stu is marrying, his son. This guy's, or the sister of Stu's fiance is the father's most prized possession. He's from Stanford. He's 17 years old. You know, he's a genius, and he's going to be a doctor, and everyone loves him, and his father is so obsessed with him. And they say, hey, let's go out to the beach, have one beer. What's the worst that could happen? And then it goes on that montage, like it did in the first one, playing some sweet tunes, you know, while it's like, this shows like the wind going by and all stuff, showing Thailand going nuts, and then you just see Phil just wake up and be like, oh no. And it happens again. So, when I went into this movie, I was like, oh, please let this be good. I don't care if it's exactly like the same. I was expecting it. And you know what? In my opinion, they did a great job. I don't think they could have done a better job with this movie. Because of the way that these movies are told and how funny they are in that way, it works so well. And there's just nothing to complain about. But, you know, they tell the story so, and that's another thing. The story in this movie, people are going to be like, oh, it's the same thing. But in my opinion, it was different enough, and there were enough moments where I was surprised, and twists happened where I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I personally really enjoyed this story. I really liked it. And there were so many times where you're just like, oh, this is just like the first one, but it was like the first one, but different. And a thing that I noticed about this movie is it moves along almost too perfectly. Like, everything, like, as soon as they're like, well, fuck, what do we do now? There's like, oh, look on your shoe. There's a credit card in there with someone's name on it. Let's go look at. That doesn't happen in the movie, but that's just like a ridiculous thing that happens in the movie. Like, that's just some dumb thing I just made up right now. But I want to say that there are a few things that make this movie stand out on its own, and makes me proud to say that they made Hangover 2 quite enjoyable. There's a scene where they have a flashback, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's one of my favorite flashbacks I've ever seen. I'm not going to say anything, whose point of view it's from, but it's really clever. I really liked it, and I thought that it was a really, really good part of the movie. And I think that people are really going to dig on that part, especially. I walked out of the theater really happy. I laughed my ass off during this movie. If there's one thing, you know, to complain about, it moves along too perfectly, you know, it's kind of like a Call of Duty game. It's just, but hey, it's fun the whole time, you know. It may be linear, it seems really linear, but great time. Whole movie, grin on my face. I was laughing. And I wanted to throw in there real quick, soundtrack for the first one, worked really well for the movie, and in this one, no different. It's very similar. There's even certain parts where they play like definitely the same singer's songs, but it was like nostalgia for the summer movie. You know what? I can't wait for the Hangover 3 starring Funnybot. I just gotta say that. And I love this movie. I liked it a lot. I had so much fun. I love the plot. I love these characters. I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with them. This was really damn good. And I hope everyone gets to see this. I hope they make another one. You know what? If you want to go into this movie being a party pooper, going and saying, it's the same thing, well, you know what? You can go fuck yourself. If you can just go into the movie, accept it, you will laugh your ass off, and you will leave the theater a happy person. And to quote Mr. Chow, who's in this movie a little more than he is in the last one, and just want to throw in there, this movie is quite crude. And to close on that, later bitches!